Hey y'all, welcome back to Yaya's Reading Nook. My name is Stephanie. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. This is the 12th time I've tried to do this, and it's going to be the last time because I'm tired of talking about these books. Anyway, I've got my September-October roundup of what I read. September, I read 5 books. One I listened to on audio, and the rest I physically read. And in October, I listened to one on audio and read 2 others. October was a pretty busy month with work, and my son that lives in Oklahoma came to visit for his older brother's birthday. So, this is a no makeup, no get out of your PJs kind of day for me. It is nasty here. The first book I listened to, and it was The Medicine Woman of Galveston. Jeez Louise. This way? No, this way. Sorry about that. And it is about a woman named Tusha, and she has a little boy that she is having to basically raise on her own. She had flunked out of med school when she was doing what would probably have been her surgical rotations, and a patient of hers died on the table because she started bleeding out, and the professor surgeon would not help her. So she's got a little bit of a PTSD through that. And then she's working in a factory, and a girl gets her arm caught in a machine, and Tusha tries to help her again. Girl bleeds out. More PSD. So now Tusha is like, what am I going to do? I have no job. I've got a son to raise. And lo and behold, there's this man named Huey who's been kind of trolling her, following her. Weird. And he comes up to her door and says, I know that you flunked out of med school. I know you got fired from your job. I know you owe almost $700 to these people by the end of the week. If you will join my show, I will pay off all your bills. You can work it off for a certain amount of time, and then you can be free and with no debts or nothing. She doesn't really want to do it because she knows that Huey is a snake oil salesman and she is an MD. But she weighs the pros and the cons. The biggest pro being is she's going to have a place to quote unquote live with her son, and her debts are going to be paid off, and she won't be put in the poorhouse to work, and her son won't be put in an insane asylum because he has Down syndrome. The con is Huey's a snake oil salesman. But what is she going to do? She finally agrees to do it, and she meets a cast of characters that range anywhere from a guy with a cleft palate to a woman who's 7 feet tall. They go about throughout the country and end up in Galveston for the winter season, right at about the time of one of the biggest hurricanes in Galveston. Galveston's history hits, and she helps her friend who gets hurt to the hospital, and she's telling the doctor, this is what's going on, this is how she got hurt, this is what I think you need to do. And the doctor's like, are you a doctor? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, I need you here. And she's like, well, I have some things to do first. So anyway, that's how she ends up to be the medicine woman of Galveston. It takes you on, it's kind of like a half cross-country road trip. It doesn't really say where they go. They just roll for a few days and they stop and do their circus acts. And she's supposed to be a psychic and all this rigmarole. I felt bad for Tusha because she was put in a situation where she really saw no way out. And when she tried to get out of it, he was like, you still owe me a lot of money, honey. You owe me for that lovely little wagon you're riding in. You owe me for these clothes that I bought you. You owe me for feeding you and your son. And she's like, but what she doesn't realize until a little bit later is everyone in that caravan is in the same situation. Huey has something on everyone. So anyway, I really like this. I like Amanda Skenendor. She wrote the Second Life of Muriel West, which is about a woman in the 1920s who lived in Hollywood and got leprosy and was sent to Carville, Louisiana, to the state leprosy colony. So if you like really good, um, I don't know if it's driven mostly by the characters or by what's going on around them. I say it's both because I can feel what Tusha feels. I can empathize and sympathize with Tusha, but I can also, when they're out in the hot sun or the hurricane's coming and there's nowhere to run, you can feel that too. You can smell the salt air. You can feel the wind. You can feel things breaking. But anyway, this was a really good read. I gave it 4.5 stars. My next read, these aren't in any order though, it's just how they're laying down, was The Ex-Girlfriend Murder Club by Gloria Chow. And this is about 3 women, Elle, Catherine, and Olivia, who have but one thing in common, and that is a man named Tucker. Tucker is a cad. He's a cheat, and he dies. And the problem is the night before, they were all in the night that they found him dead, they were in his apartment pranking him because they thought he was out of town. So Catherine decides that she's the scientist. She'll go back and she'll get all the DNA up that she can. Well, while she's there, a detective walks in or comes to the door and walks in and says, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "Well, I'm his girlfriend and I'm cleaning up because he's out of town and I want it to be nice." And he's like, "Well, I'm here because there was some mysterious things going on and the neighbors have complained." And so she's like, "Well, I don't know about that." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to look around." She's like, "Okay, go ahead." And he finds Tucker. And he decides that she's probably the number one suspect. So it's up to her two friends and her to figure out who wanted Tucker dead and why he was killed and when he was killed so that she won't have to go to prison. It's a really good cozy mystery, and it says it's a Who, H-U, because that's Catherine's last name. It's a whodunit mystery. So I don't know if Gloria Chow is going to have any more like cozy mysteries, make this a series. I looked online and didn't see anything, but that doesn't mean she's not in the middle of writing one. So my next one was The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. This is a dual timeline with a bunch of characters. And it starts out in the late 1930s, I think, in Egypt. And there's a young woman named Catherine. And is that her name, Catherine? Charlotte, excuse me. There's a young woman named Charlotte, and she is on a dig with some people who work in Egypt, and they are looking for this queen. And she comes across this collar, and she tries to make it her find, but the man Henry that she's working under and Henry's friend Leon, who is a snake in the grass, are like, well, let's don't go around talking about that. Her and Henry fall in love, get married, have a baby, and they are still in Egypt when World War II breaks out. Well, that gives Henry and Leon, the slime ball, a good reason to leave. And Harry tells her, Harry, I forgot what his name is. Actually, it doesn't really matter because he was a jerk too. Anyway, hubby comes in one night and says, "You got to pack up. We got to get out of here. The wars broke out. The Nazis are heading this way. They're going to get anyone who's not German." So she's like, "Okay." And he's like, "We have to cross now really, really fast. So get dressed, get packed, and all this stuff." Well, she starts packing stuff, and she finds some things that were in these tombs that were lifted. The tombs were they were taken out of the tombs to go to a better place, probably. And that's in Henry and Leon's luggage. So anyway, Charlotte gets on the boat with her daughter, and Henry takes her daughter and says, You get this life raft. I'll get one with the baby, and we'll meet on the other side. Well, she's going and going and going, and there's a big storm on the Nile. Who would have thunk it? So she gets up on the other side of the Nile in a hospital, not knowing what happened to her husband or her baby, how she got there. And she goes back home, and her mom and dad are like, well, let's just forget those last couple of years. We won't talk about it. So fast forward 40 years, 1976, I believe, and Charlotte is working at the Met, and they're getting ready for the big Met Gala. She's also been doing research on that Cerulean Queen. And she opens up a box one day, and there is this collar that she found when she was in Egypt 40 years ago. And she's like, okay, this should have went down with the ship. Is my husband still alive? Is my daughter still alive? Is Leon alive? Because if Leon's alive, we're going to find out what happened. So she decides to quit her job and go to Egypt to look for her husband and daughter. And there's a young girl named Annie, and she was Diane Vreelander's assistant, who was over the Met. And she makes a royal mistake, or so she thinks. She goes out to get some butterflies for the event, and when they're delivered and she opens the door, it turns out that they're moths. So she gets fired. What's the girl to do but tag on this trip with Charlotte? And they go to Egypt, and they're, asking questions, finding out stuff. They find out about Leon. They meet up with Leon. Leon's still a scumbag. So this takes us on a journey, a 40-year journey. 40 years of not knowing what happened to a husband and a daughter. 40 years of not knowing, are they alive? Are they dead? And the mystery behind this queen and this collar. And Fiona Davis writes really good books about New York buildings, like the Radio City Music Hall, the New York Public Library. I think there was a place called the Chelsea House, which had girls that when they were moved to New York to go to secretarial school, they would stay there. This one is about the Met, Metropolitan Museum of Art. I think that's the name of it. Anyway, this was a really good book. I gave it like 4.5 stars. It is also signed because my friend Leanne got it signed for me when she met Fiona Davis when this book was coming out. My next book is one that I read the very 1st of September because I got to meet Stacey Willingham when she was promoting her book, Forget Me Not. And this is about a young woman whose sister, when she was about 11 or 12, the sister was about 10 years older. Sister climbed out a window, got in a van, and never came back. And so when she was old enough to leave home, this girl, Claire, leaves home and goes to New York. And one day she gets a call from her dad saying, your mom has fallen and I need you to come home and help take care of her. Well, Claire's like, I really don't want to, but okay. And when she gets home, she decides she's going to find out what happened to her sister. Because some things just didn't add up. Like, the cops barely looked for her. So she goes on this journey through her sister's life. And she ends up on an island where there is a winery, wine vineyards and gardens and stuff. And she meets the man and lady that live there. And they are a little bit different. There's a man that lives there also who she doesn't know at the time is their son, and he is basically there to make sure that she doesn't figure out anything. But she finds an old diary and starts reading the diary and starts piecing things together. This was the first Stacey Willingham book that I read. I do have all the others, and I did get to get them all signed by Stacey Willingham when I met her on the 3rd of September at Parnassus Books in Nashville. This was I say it's about a 4 3/4 stars. Also, Stacey Willingham has a book that will be coming out maybe sometime next year, and it's based in Fairhope, Alabama, which is across the bay from where I'm from. So, and it is called, I think, supposed to be called the Fairhope Four. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I got her other 3 books. I'm going to get to them one day. And the last book that I read took me a while to read. It's a nonfiction. Have no idea why it took me so long. And it's No Crying in Baseball. The inside story of A League of Their Own, Big Stars, Dugout Drama, and a Home Run for Hollywood by Aaron Carlson. And this tells the story of how Penny Marshall came to get the rights to make A League of Their Own. And how she went about casting the people. Gina Davis and Lori Petty and Tom Hanks were the 3 big players in this, as far as I'm concerned. But there were other people that tried out. Demi Moore tried out. She actually won the role as Dottie because Gina Davis had not, she was just up and coming, I think, at the time. Lori Petty was basically a shoo-in for kids. Let's see, who else tried out for it? Oh, Brooke Shields tried out. Sarah Jessica Parker tried out. Marla Maples, Before the Donald, tried out. Let's see, who else? Daryl Hannah wanted her on private audition. Now, the only thing I've ever seen Daryl Hannah in is Mermaid, I think is the name of it. Something about a mermaid. She was in it with Tom Hanks, I think. Anyway, this just tells the story of how they all, had to try out, how Penny sent people scouting different fields, different baseball fields, and Hollywood was still not very receptive of women directors, and they were like, no woman's going to watch a bunch of women play baseball. No man's going to want to watch a movie about a bunch of women playing baseball. And she just didn't care. She was going to do it anyway. She hired Madonna, and Madonna was just up and coming. She was popular, but she wasn't like she is now. She was still a diva. She wanted top billing, and Penny told her no. They didn't like each other at all, people. And Tom Hanks was not the original choice for Jimmy Dugan. It was actually Jim Belushi, and I'm not sure if I remember if it said why Jim Belushi dropped out or was not picked, but Penny had just directed Tom Hanks in the movie Big. And so they had a really good camaraderie, and they really had a fun time. So one of the things I learned about Penny Marshall, though, was she was a big, big baseball fan. Anywhere she went, she had her people, or she would go to thrift stores, antique stores, and look for baseball memorabilia. She actually had a room in her house dedicated to baseball memorabilia. The movie was a success, and Tom wanted her to direct him in, wait for it, Forrest Gump. And she said no. She didn't want to do that anymore. She was going to direct more kind of independent female things. So Robert Zemeckis got the job to direct Tom Hanks. And of course, we know how Forrest Gump went. He also directed Back to the Future, which this is the 40th anniversary of that movie. And I won it off Goodreads, a book called Future Boy that was written by Michael J. Fox, and he tells the story of working both the movies and his TV show. Anyway, I do not rate my nonfiction books because it's not up to me to tell somebody how good they are. This was a 5-star book, as opposed to, if Madonna hadn't been in it, would have been a 4-star book. I don't know. But yeah, I usually don't rate my nonfiction books just for that reason. So let's move on to October. And I only read 3 books in October because work started getting busy, and my son was here for a week, and just life. I have no excuse, just life. This first one was a arc that I got from Goodreads, and it is This a Cry for Help by Emily Austin? And it is about a 30-something-year-old woman who, when the book opens, she's returning back to work as a librarian after being out for a month, and she had been sick for a month. She had actually had a mental breakdown and had been in the hospital for a little while, and then she was recovering at home. Her wife's sister is pregnant, and when her sister goes into labor, her wife goes to stay with her. So she's having to navigate not only just going back to work and living life again, but her first day back, she catches a man watching porn. And there are all these people, and we see them still today, who wanted to ban books. Why is this man watching porn? I know the library I worked at, we had filters where you couldn't do that. And if you somehow figured it out, you were asked to leave. And then there was people complaining about a drag queen was going to come read at the library. And she was like, no, that's just someone dressed up in a character. But if it was, who cares? If you don't want your kids there, don't take them. That was what I told some people when we had it done. But anyway, so she's navigating life once again. And in the end, she pretty much figures out, life has got its ups and downs. And, when you are in a mental health crisis, you need your help. You need to get help. And that is what she has done. I really think this is a really good book for most anybody, especially from someone maybe who has had mental health issues. I know my 4 kids have. I have, not so far as to end up in a hospital, but seasonal depression. I have chemical depression because of all the drugs. Okay, medication I take for some chronic illnesses. But anyway, yeah, this comes out in, I think, the beginning of 2026. But I'm really glad I won it. I just actually clicked on it just to click on it, not thinking I'd win it. But, the author, yeah, Emily Austin. I haven't really read anything by her, but she wrote a book called Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. Huh. Ain't that the truth? Anyway, on to my next one that I read, and it was the next installment of the Molly the Maid series by Nita Prose, The Maid's Secret. In this one, we see Molly the Maid and Juan Manuel are engaged, and they're trying to plan their wedding. Well, one day, these two men, they call them the Bees, because their last name is Braun and something else. Anyway, it's a married couple, and they do like the Antiques Roadshow things. They go to different places and do it. They really know all their antiques and what things are worth. They are coming to the Royal Regency. I think that's the name of the hotel, the Regency. Anyway, they're coming to Molly's place of business, and they're going to put on a show there. Well, they tell the people that work at the motel or the hotel, bring something beforehand. We'll tell you what it's worth, if it's worth anything or if it's not. Most everyone knows that what they have is sentimental. Molly gets this egg and brings it because it's the most sentimental thing her grandmother had that she gave her. And wouldn't you know it, it's a real life Fabergé egg. Well, it all breaks loose. Molly passes out when they tell her she's a millionaire. She's going to be a millionaire. And, everybody's planning everything, but Molly's just like, oh, okay, what do I do with it? Well, how do I navigate this? Because she's on that neurodivergent, she cannot jump from one thing to the other. But the egg gets stolen. And then a few days later, it gets returned. Something's fishy in the hotel, and it's not the fish. Yeah, it was a really good good read. The thing I like most about this is my favorite one so far, is we get to see Molly's grandmother as a child, as a young adult, and as an adult, and as she navigates life with as a single mother to Molly's mother, and then raising Molly herself. Molly is left with a diary, and she's never picked it up, and she finally picks it up and starts reading it. So, like every other chapter, we're getting a piece of Graham's diary. And that, to me, was the best part of it, because, the very first book was, Grand Vendetta for 4 years, or however long. So, I really like this one. I gave it like a 4.5 stars. This next one, if the last video I had done would have worked and lined up with the voice stuff when I was trying to edit, would have been most embarrassing, because I actually forgot what it was about. So I went back and read the little synopsis, and it was like, doing, now I remember. And it is Ashley Winstead's This Book Will Bury Me. And it's about a young woman who's in college, and she gets a phone call from her mother, and her dad has died. So she goes home to be with her mom, and she just can't get back into the groove to going back to school. So she's not sleeping well, she's not eating right. Her mom says her dad was overweight, that's what's wrong. We're going to get in shape and eat right. And she's like, whatever. She's eating Cheetos, hiding cookies and eating Cheetos. But she gets on the dark web somehow. And it's the dark web, kind of armchair detectives. And she gets in with a group of people who are trying to solve the murder of some girls in Delphine, Ohio. I don't know if that's a real place or not. But she just gets pulled in and pulled in and pulled in. And she's at a point to where she's probably about to just really lose it all. She figures out towards the end with one of the men, the killers, but she's gone through other previous murders and killers and armchair detecting, and have helped solve some mysteries and some crimes. So she's pretty popular. This one, to me, I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.25, I think. The one problem I had with it was the kills in the college in Ohio were so close to the kills of the kids in Moscow, Idaho, was it? A couple years ago, the young man and his girlfriend and their 2 roommates who were murdered by that crazy guy. That I know writers take real life and use it at times and kind of turn it around for a book, but to me that just felt a little too recent. Now, maybe I'm speculating, maybe I'm projecting on this, but aside from it being a really, really good book, that was my only problem with it. I did read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I have the others by Ashley Winstead. Have they been read? No. Will they? Someday. And someday my prince will come and, leave me a bunch of money, huh? Not really. That ain't happening, people. Anyway, that is what I have read for September and October. If you've read those, tell me what you thought of them. If there's any that you're reading right now, let me know what you're reading. I am reading a book called The Blonde Identity, actually listening to it, and it's the first in a series about a young woman who wakes up and she doesn't know where she's at. She's in the middle of Paris in a snowstorm, flat on her back, but she didn't know anything else. It's a cute rom-com / cozy mystery. And I am also reading for my book club at Parnassus Books, Woman in Cabin 10. the type is so little. I'm not enjoying it. But that's neither here nor there. So what are you reading lately? Do you have any plans for what you're going to read the rest of the year? I do have some plans for what I want to read. Now, when I get to them, who knows? I'm going to finish cooking, though, and well, I hope you guys have a good weekend. I hope it's not as nasty there where you are as it is where I am, because it's pretty darn nasty. If you liked what you saw, just give me a thumbs up. Maybe hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Hit that little notification bell. So hopefully within another week, I'll have another video for you. I'm not doing a whole lot this weekend because it's nasty. Except eat my grandkids' candy because I can. Not gonna eat it all. I don't like some of that stuff. Anyway, you guys have a great day, great weekend, great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.